Hello and welcome to this week's live stream. My name is Jeff Rolka. It's 6 p.m. here near London. And this is this week's Office Hours Q&A. The chat is open. Aldo, thank you very much for christening the chat this evening. It's great to see you pop up as always. I've got a little bit of a backlog of some questions. Actually, one that was left over from last week that I wanted to address briefly, and then a couple others that came in and I really, really wanted to speak to tonight. So I'm just going to get going here. The chat's open. This is your live event. So if you've got a question, please type it in or get it in the chat there. And so that we can address it. There's always a lot of great comments and interplay with people in the chat, and I usually get to just about everybody. So, get your questions up there, and I will get to them in turn. If you've subscribed, thank you. And if you haven't yet, I hope that you'll consider doing so now. Now, couple things here. Let me see here. This is more of a question for you all, and that is anyone finding the volume a little low? This person is using a Windows notebook computer without any external speakers, and I find the volume of the videos quite low on both of their computers. If anyone has anything to add to that, thoughts, experiences, or information, that would be awesome. I've actually gone back and forth with this person in a good way in the comments sections, trying to figure out what it is. And I just don't know. I'm afraid I don't know enough about PC systems to really adequately advise them. So if anybody has any information about that, that would be really, really fantastic. King Muse El Rey de la Inspiración says hello, and I say hello back. Chasey's Radiant Ray, good day, welcome. Zoroko, hello. And yes, you had a comment out in the comment section asking for a request. I haven't responded in the comment section, but yeah, I'll happily do that quick tip video. Passion the Singer 43, hello. As a new singer at 45, should I warm up every day? Yes. And if you're very new to vocals, the warm-up playlist here on my channel, like warm-up is code word for technical exercise. I mean, yes, they're warm-ups and they're awesome to get you going and all that kind of stuff, but do one of those and then go off and do whatever it is you're working on song-wise, and the technical exercises will really, really help your development as a vocalist. Capone, good evening to you up in Finland, and thank you, by the way. I saw your response to that other person in Finnish. That's really cool. Thank you so much for taking the initiative and talking to them about that. Okay, so Zoroko's talking about the volume. You can hear it. Not sure to turn it up louder. I mean, like, everything out here says I'm right where I should be. Like, I'm tapping the red every once in a while. The encoder seems to be, near 0 dB, which is unity, and that's about as loud as you can really have it without clipping. Hello, Heidi and Zoroko. Okay, cool. Okay, I'll take those a couple more here. Alex Hager says, Jeff, you're amazing. You encouraged me on my music journey, and my debut single wouldn't be anything without your help. Thank you. I am honored. And keep up the good work. If you get that, presumably you'll get that online. So let me know through one of the comments. Although sometimes you may have to send a message to me through YouTube. I'd love to have a listen. If you leave a comment, it'll often get filtered by YouTube's spam filtration things. There's nothing really I can do about that. But if you send it to me in a message from YouTube, that would be cool. And Passion the Singer 43 says, thank you. You're very welcome. So that was one question. Let's see here. One person asked how long it would take to smooth out the break. And they're specifically referring to the transition between thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice and cricothyroid dominant singing voice. That the secondo passaggio there at the top of the zona de passaggio, or mix range, if you will, is often referred to as the break. And the answer to that question is it varies widely. I have coached people that it has taken quite a significant amount of time to smooth out that transition, but we get there in the end. Other people have astounded me by how quickly that they have been able to achieve a smooth transition. However, that does not always linger. In other words, in vocal training, you can often achieve something, but then you may lose that ability in the immediate future beyond it. And you'll have to go back and not entirely relearn how to do it, but remind yourself and go through the process several times before it really becomes something that you can consistently do and count on. So that's kind of one of the things that I do in my vocal training is I try to coax my clients along, and in the videos attempt to do this as well in the way that the vowels are arranged and the ranges and things like that. I want to kind of coax you into hearing your voice in a certain way, feeling how it can work when things are well aligned and working efficiently, such that you can notice it and then work towards recreating that. And in the practice of recreating it, we develop consistency that translates into the songs. Let me see. Steve Areno says hello, and hello back, sir. King Muse El Rey, how to sing with my real voice. I mean, some people say that's not your voice. How am I supposed to know? Whoop, you went underneath my notes there. Which one is my voice? That's a very good question. And that gets into the subjective very, very quickly. I try to split things up into objective criteria. It's out of tune, it's not aligned well, you're straining, and then subjective. The resonance could be a little bit darker, it could be a little bit lighter, it could be, X, Y, Z. What do you want? That you will have to go through the process of developing a neutral sounding voice. A lot of the short exercises, the warm-ups and the lessons on my channel that begin with short exercises can help you to do that. The short exercise ideally helps you balance vocal fold engagement versus airflow. That is a neutral position. When that translates through all the vowels, and we can ultimately then take it throughout our range, you're basically at a starting point in a way, though usually in that process we learn a lot about how you wish to use your voice. So I would work towards a balanced tonal production of your voice with good engagement so that you can sustainably do it, ideally practicing every day. And then as you learn more and more about how your voice operates, the things that come easy for you and the things that are more challenging, that will inform the colorations that you choose to employ. So, yeah, in some respects, that's a non-answer because it's not up to me. It's up to you to decide, I think, what you should be, what you wish to sound like. And I think that should include your personal strengths, your passions, the things that you love and love to sing and love about singing. That should all go in and inform how you use your voice, I think. So, Esther says hello, and I say hello back. JC's Rating Ray says, I use multiple devices. So far, I have not experienced any problems. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Peyton Chan says hello, and I say hello back. Susan Taylor, welcome. probably 8 or 9 minutes, Susan. I think that's perfectly acceptable. Perfectly well within the realm of artistic interpretation of 6 p.m. London time. Zoroko, how to tell if your throat is open or closed? I feel it may be the phlegm I'm intaking. Also working hard on resonance, but I took a break somewhere toward last week. Yeah, if you take a break, boy, that can be tricky. It can really, really be tricky. In terms of telling if your throat is open or closed, you will most likely notice the openness or the closedness it'll probably manifest itself in terms of vocal fatigue or strain. If you're feeling a lot of strain or fatigue, it's quite possibly that your throat is closing a bit. Yeah. Yeah. y- So, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't know if you can hear that on my microphone or not, but for those of you who don't know, I have twin daughters that are like 3.5 years old, and it sounds like all chaos is breaking loose beneath me right now. It sounds like it's all safe and everything, but um, so let me see here. What was I saying? Yeah, if your throat is closed, I think mostly you'll hear that in strain. You may also notice that a lot in terms of if the vowels change color or volume dramatically. So, like if you're singing from, say, an ah to an oo, now that's a dramatic difference, right? Ah, ooh. You can hear how much that changes volume. So I'm clamping down on that, and I'm kind of swallowing the vowel a little bit, and that's changing the volume. So those things will be telltale signs for the closure of the throat. Also, additionally, as you approach the zona de passaggio, if you're finding that you strain more and more and more as you get nearer your transition point, your secondo passaggio, probably not enough space in the oral cavity there to allow for adequate airflow. Let me see here. I'm going to skip over that. Kumar says hello, and it's good to see you too, Kumar. You're welcome, King Muse Ray. Let me go back to Esther here. I'm a 16-year-old first soprano, but I'm told my voice isn't fully developed. About what age do you think your voice is fully developed so I can hit those high soprano notes? Well, I have heard many a thing. Certainly, I have heard if you're talking about opera singers, you're looking at like 35 to 40. Basically, is when you will be at your peak. That's not to say that you can't become extraordinarily impressive long before then, but that will be perhaps your peak development. You're probably still growing quite a bit and changing, and your body's going to go through a bunch of changes for several more years. So I would look towards the early 20s. Now, the good news for you is that you're probably not going to deal with a huge change in the actual physicality of the instrument. So the kinds of work that you do now on airflow and engagement and alignment of your vowel syllables will carry over more smoothly than it might be in a male vocalist. So this may seem counterintuitive, but if you really, really want those super high soprano notes to ring out when the time is right, focus on your thyroarytenoid dominant range now. Stick in your comfortable range and up into the zona de passaggio, smoothing through that transition point and dialing in your airflow. And when the time comes and you're able to when you're able to start really, really ascending, then it will all be so much easier and it will go so much faster. Far, far too soon do many of us try to sing in our upper registers when we haven't really sufficiently developed an adequate technique in our thyroarytenoid dominant range. So that would be a big tip for you there, my main advice. One little leftover question here. I'm going to take these really fast. Do I think one voice type is better than the other? This person's a mezzo, sometimes gets frustrated they can't sing the super high tones that sopranos can do. Yeah, but sopranos don't have the presence in the lower mid-range that you do. It's always a trade-off. It can be difficult to have idolize people that are vocalists of a different fache than oneself. But each of us have our own unique gifts and special things that we can bring to singing. And what I want to encourage you to do is just embrace your voice and really, really focus on the things that your voice does exceptionally well that perhaps not all others can do. And I would also suggest that high range technique for you does not preclude you from getting into similar ranges that many sopranos can. I've known many mezzos that can sing just as high as some sopranos. And in sopranos, you say here high notes that sopranos can do so effortlessly. Don't be fooled by the passive expression on a vocalist's face. if the vocalist has had adequate training and they're really in tune with their body alignment and engagement of their airflow mechanisms, there can be little to nothing happening in their facial expressions, and you'll hear these magnificent notes ringing out. That doesn't mean that they're not really working it internally. So it may look effortless, and kind of that's sort of our job, is to make it look easy. We don't want people in the audience looking at us going, "Ooh, that kind of hurt." I mean, we want them. I mean, sometimes we want to have certain expressions on our faces that can be emotive, can show them what the intended meaning of the song may have in it. But we don't want them looking at us going, "Oh, it looks like they're really struggling for that pitch there." So, yeah, we must never I almost did it. I almost said misunderestimate. I was gonna pull out the old George W. Bush misunderestimate. I nearly did it. That has gone into common usage. We don't want to underestimate the kind of work that's going on with a passive expression on the face. And then this person has a question about the secondo passaggio, and then I'm going to get back on my screen here about switching a pitch. The secondo passaggio is a fixed position in our vocal ranges within reason. It can drift by a half step or so once you've defined where it is in your vocal range. And the person's asking about whether they should switch in the one spot or just switch on an arbitrary chosen note, like the third note of a scale or the fourth note of a scale. That's not really practical because the zona di passaggio is going to fall in a different location depending on the scale. So for myself personally, with the zona di passaggio between F and F sharp above middle C, depending on the melody, like the key of D major, if it has that F sharp above middle C, it can be quite challenging to work that part up because it's literally sitting right on my transition point. On the other hand, if I'm in the key of C major with the E natural, which is right below my secondo passaggio, it's quite casual. So that can, the location of your secondo passaggio can inform the keys that you choose to put your songs in, depending on the melody. That's a lot to unpack, but hopefully that makes sense. And I think I'm caught up. Excellent. All right, let's get back to the screen here. Let me see. Maz, hello, welcome. Kumar, I got that one. King Muse, you're very welcome. King Muse, el rey de la inspiración. I'm going to just abbreviate that to King Muse in the future. I hope that's okay. Kipani, is ultimate how to sound good or pleasant. We can all sing different ways. I don't want idols sound I am towards old blues singers like Reverend Gary Davis, etc. It is very raw sound. I think what you're asking is whether or not the goal is ultimately to sound good and or pleasant. And I think that varies from person to person. The exercises, warm-ups, and tools that are on my channel are meant to help you develop a neutral vocal delivery that you can then choose to guide however you wish. Speaking for myself personally, I find beauty in a well-balanced, well-engaged sound that flows nicely through the various registration points in the human voice. And that is what I focus all my energies towards in my own singing. It is surprising sometimes how little adjustments to it can... I guess what I'm saying is when I do add an affectation to my own personal singing, I can be quite surprised by how much I like it when I normally prefer such a neutral sound. But if you don't want to sing like an old blues singer, I'm not exactly sure. If that's what you're saying, like you don't want to sound like those old blues guys, then one of the ways you can certainly do that is in how you practice the songs. Learn the song, maybe learn the song away from the recording if you can read music. If you can't read music, maybe start. Some of that old blues stuff, if that's what you're singing, you can't necessarily get transcriptions for, so that may be a bit challenging. But if you're concerned about starting to sound like them, limit the amount of times that you listen to the recordings. Or one thing that I will do too is, once I've learned, if I'm going to learn it by listening to it or something such as that, I'll listen to it a bunch and listen to it a bunch and just really inundate myself with it, and then I'll put it away for a long time and come back to it after weeks or months and start my own version of it. Changing keys can also help kind of get you into your own way of doing the tune. Changing tempos can also assist with that. Skite Hussein is asking, "Hi Jeff, how to check if teacher is good? How to choose singing teacher from those all ads and not spend fortune?" Awesome question. Thank you for asking. Kind of depends on where you are. If you are in, okay, so first of all, the largest collection of teachers of singing are under an umbrella organization called NATS, N-A-T-S. I believe it's the National Association of Teachers of Singing, or it's either National Association or National Association or National Alliance. So I think it's association. In any case, if you type NATS, I'll put it in the chat here. Oops, that didn't work. If you do a search for that, that can help whittle down the number of teachers in a given area. It is an international organization, so you can find singing instructors all over the world. In terms of price, I hate to say this, but you pay for what you get. But that doesn't mean that an inexpensive singing instructor is going to be very, very expensive. You may consider looking up your arts colleges or arts universities in your area. I can assure you that there will be students there that are willing to take on some students of their own. When I was in university, I had an entire studio while I was in university. And it's quite likely that you'll be able to do that. And students you can often get a really, really good deal. They won't have as much experience, but that doesn't mean they won't be good. But Nats and those are two really, really good ways to go about it. And honestly, even all things being equal, two teachers, both equally qualified, you may find that you just like one more than the other, and that's perfectly fine. All of us communicate in our own individual ways and attend to our clients' goals and aspirations in our own ways, and that person, you're gonna have to maybe shop around a little bit. Personally, I'm wary of teachers that insist I sign on for 3 months at a time or something like that. I would ask them if they would just do you a single lesson, or maybe a couple lessons if they don't want to do just that, or something like. Just see what feels right and talk to them. See if they'll talk to you. Ask them if they'll talk to you for 15 minutes on the phone and just ask them questions. Any of those things are ways that you can kind of source out a good teacher, but Nats is one way that you can at least get the ball rolling, get started, and see who's up there. You might also search. I'm sorry, I'm going on longer about this than I thought I would, but in any case, you could also look for rehearsal facilities in your area. For example, when I teach in central London, I teach in either shop music or I teach at the music studios at 29 Marylebone Lane. And if you call them, they will have several people that they can probably refer you to. Okay, I hope that helps. Slana, hello. Hey, thank you for all your kind comments. I hope I said your name correctly. And welcome. Hello from England. Hello to you in Brazil. Greg, Jeff, I've noticed that a lot of my enunciation is a bit off in terms of vowels. I can do all 5 pure vowels with the same placement and resonance when I do exercises, but in songs it falls apart. Um, yeah. Okay, so my first thought here is airflow through the consonants. Partially phonating consonants are a little bit easier than plosives. Plosive is like a B or a P, things that have that puff of air, that p, p or b, b. And I hope I'm not shocking everybody's ears on the mic here. With an M or an L or an N, those are partially phonating, so you can really sing through those. I would, as a practice, I would blend my consonants as far towards phonating or partially as close to a partially phonating consonant as I possibly could, in order to try to match the vowels across the partially phonating consonant, and then move my regular vowels back into the phrase. It is somewhat of a protracted experience. However, if you're getting vowel inconsistencies in your phrases, but they're working in your exercises, then my suspicion is that we're not getting enough follow through through the consonants of the phrases. You may also think about it in terms of connecting from vowel to vowel to vowel. So, if you're singing like, I just gotta make something up here. What do we got here? How to pronounce right when singing. Okay, so I just borrowed your line there. How to. That's going to really break up my airflow. How to. So we have to really, really make a conscious effort to get to the oo. How to pronounce. The N in pronounce will tempt us into the diphthong. How to pronounce. It'll tempt us to elongate it, sing through it, and quickly, again, getting to the vowel behind it. How to pronounce right. The R is similar. We'll be tempted to do that. Additionally, too, going from that closed to the I, we may go towards an ah syllable. How to pronounce right. That can happen as well. Focus on the root of that vowel. But again, you may substitute all of that stuff with other things. Substitute the T for a D. You could substitute the PR for an M. How to pronounce. The R could be something yet different still. And in going through that process gets the vowels to line up in the phrase in question, and then we A-B versus the consonants that we're singing. So we put the consonants back in and try it. You may notice your airflow changing when you have the consonants, and then adjust them as necessary. T's are going to have to be a little bit lighter on the t in order to be phrased properly in the context of a song. And it's 1:30, so I want to do my station identification. My name is Jeff, and welcome those of you who are new. Welcome to the Q&A. If you got a question, please go ahead and drop it in the chat there, and I will get to it just as soon as I possibly can. If you've chosen to subscribe, thank you. And if you haven't yet, I hope that you'll think about that and maybe do so tonight. So, okay. Greg, you were just saying, you're explaining here, the IH sound in words like in and river seems like weird hybrid, pronounced right when singing. Yeah, the consonants can influence that. That is my main concern. But like in in seems like weird hybrid that I don't know how to pronounce right when singing. I'm still wondering if you're going too far into the diphthong, especially on the words like in. in that one, the challenge would be staying out of the diphthong long enough. So in. So there's the vowel in, and I just use the diphthong and the end sound to close it off. In river, that's what I was getting at with the word right, where that R sound, we have to really know what vowel we're going to. River, river. Think first, sing second. Actually, I need to take my own advice. Yeah, that R there, that R can really influence the vowel that comes afterwards. Susan Taylor, Jeff, can an alto become a contralto? My dream is to have a low, full voice like Karen Carpenter, but I'm afraid her voice was one of a kind. Well, it was one of a kind. It was Karen Carpenter, and of course, she hasn't been with us for a long time, I think, if I'm correct. But that doesn't mean that you can't develop a lovely, beautiful low range. I have been privileged to work with a couple altos, still working with one, and worked with another one in the not too distant past, and it is lovely. I just think that's amazing, and I want to heartily encourage you to find out as much as you can about the development of your voice. Start light for one, and try as best you can to keep your larynx in a neutral position. If you push down on your larynx for the quick fix, or for the quick shot of lowness, you're going to end up bottoming out far higher up in your register than what you'll truly be able to achieve ultimately. It's a sort of a strange conundrum. But yeah, if you press down on the larynx, then you won't really be able to get the richness down there, because you'll be constricting airflow too much. So yeah, and keep me posted. You may consider getting into some of the tenor range warm-ups. They don't necessarily need to be the full range ones. Most of them go down to a low C, and that for many of there's one alto I've worked with who could sing that, which I thought was amazing. I don't know if you've got that kind of low pipes or not. It doesn't really matter. I mean, and I'm not entirely familiar with what Karen Carpenter's range was, but the tenor range stuff, the exercises, if you've got like an alto warm-up that you really like, do one of the tenor ones and see if you can stay light and bright as you make that descent, and see how it feels. But again, you've got maybe monitor the larynx with a hand at the throat so that you can be certain you're not pushing down. We do not wish to push down. We want to stay in that neutral position, and as you make that descent, let it be rich and bright. If I push it down, that's going to end very soon. Covers by Nadia. How can I stop my voice from cracking? The short answer to that is to balance your airflow versus vocal fold engagement. Cracking isn't always an indication of something bad, by the way. Obviously, we don't want to be on stage and cracking unless we're working it into our performance. That's totally legit. But if it's an unintended cracking, there's some type of imbalance that's occurring. Either there's too much airflow and the vocal fold is either being, like you're belting and you're really straining, which is not advisable, or there's too much airflow and the vocal fold is only partially adducting. In other words, it's not meeting very fully, and then things can slide off the vocal fold and crack. When we get the vocal fold balanced muscle energy wise with subglottic pressure, and subglottic pressure is the air column when it's in an engaged and supportive fashion, then they'll work really, really well in harmony. There are several exercises. There's so many instances of this on the channel. The easiest way to, you know, I'm guessing by your user ID that you are an experienced singer. So please take this. Do not be offended, but the beginner lessons will show you these exercises, and then you might go and find them in the warm-up channel, in the warm-up playlist, where you'll get more full range and more comprehensive exercises that you can work on. They exist in the warm-up channel, but it'll be much easier to find out what I'm talking about by just going over there and looking at, like, almost any of those videos will have those kind of exercises. In fact, next week, because last week I mentioned I needed to do more videos for new vocalists, beginner videos. I did some lessons for next week that will be for new vocalists, and they are largely focused on that exercise and how to transition from that into more steady stream singing. So maybe just check into that and see how it goes, and then go find it in the warm-up channel. Finding it will become much easier in the not-too-distant future because I wrote a guidebook to my YouTube channel, and in the descriptions, it delineates a lot of what exercises are contained in the videos. It also is searchable by keyword within the guidebook. And I did there was some other way to search it too. I'm slipping my mind right now. But that will become available very soon. And that will help expedite that process for you. Aldo. Oh. Aldo, where? Scrolling. Oh, I gotta get moving here. Apagio has transformed my voice. I'm so happy, but I have a problem. Inside my noise up from my throat, I feel like I'm having mucus. Is it from the siren falsetto that I do, or from the... Am I missing something here? Weather change. Well spoken. Mucus on the throat is an entirely natural occurrence. The weather change can certainly do that. The change in temperature can have a dramatic effect on your voice. It certainly does on mine. Oftentimes, mucus forms on the vocal fold. If you have not been sick, but you're singing a lot, like if you're really, really going for it on a Wednesday, rest assured on Thursday, you're going to have a bit more mucus. It's your body's reaction to the usage of the voice. It's not saying that you've damaged it or done anything wrong. It's just that your body's going to throw that on the vocal fold to rejuvenate it. What you haven't mentioned is hydration. And if you are not well hydrated, that can lead to some mucus collection as well, because it won't be thinned as adequately. So yeah, I would look towards hydration. I would wrap my throat up in a scarf. I might wear a hat. I would keep warm, get a nice pair of gloves, and settle in for the winter. And stay warm. Staying warm is crucial for me. I don't know whether or not to say I'm more or less sensitive to the cold. Capone may have more to say about cold weather singing up in Finland there. I see that. I just noticed down there that you're still there, so I thought I'd throw that out there. Anyways, yeah, but I'm with you, man. Apagio has transformed me as well, and that's part of the reason why I'm quite outspoken about it on the channel. Zoroko, okay, excellent. Peyton Chan, hello. I am very passionate about choral music and was wondering if there are any choirs that you especially enjoy. King's College is amazing. Over at Oxford, it's sublime. I mean, choirs are so beautiful. But man, that one's just. But it's such an experience when you go there. Of course, I'm living in England right now, so um, when you go in and it's just yeah, that is yeah. Sorry, that's what I got for you. Susan Taylor is reiterating misunderestimate, and I wrote Nats. Mason says thank you, and you are very welcome, Mason. I very much wish to be informative. Maz, I was talking to one of my friends, who's a choir director, who told me that tenors are very difficult to find these days. Is it true that tenors are rare? What is the most common male fosh? Baritone. The baritone voice is the most common male fosh. I I wonder what I wonder what they're basing that on. I I'm a member of the association that I mentioned, Nats. I'm a member of, so I get their newsletters and everything. I haven't seen anything about this. Um, yeah, I'm not really sure what to speak of. It's the, there aren't. I mean, not every male vocalist is a tenor, but I mean, I've certainly run into plenty. They're not necessarily operatic tenors. They're using their voices in different ways. Perhaps the thing to consider isn't so much that there are less tenors, but they're going to different places. At last, Nats has an international conference every 2 years, and 2 years ago there was a panel that talked about modern vocal pedagogy, modern vocal teaching. People like me teaching people to sing, and what they said is that you know something like 90% of all university vocal instruction is oriented towards opera, but 95% of all paying vocal, like professional vocal work, is in the pop rock realm. So there's a discontinuity here between what's being taught versus where people can make a living, and that's something that, quite frankly, I'm trying to change, because the stuff that I'm teaching is just as applicable to classical vocalization as it is to popular singing. It's the aperture and the oral cavity and how we use those systems that are ultimately going to be developed to inform the genre that we wish to sing. Aldo, in my opinion, the only way to find your own voice is to kill your idols and create your own songs. I think you mean that figuratively, of course. But yeah, I agree. I mean, that is where we find our voices, and then those songs are written to speak to our strong suits. Bohemian Rhapsody wasn't written to showcase my or any one of our strong suits. It was written to showcase Freddie Mercury's strong suits. But this is also why I think it's so important to feel free to change keys, to move the key so that it is in a reasonable place for your voice. I'm not suggesting, that if it's a piece that's normally sung high, you move it all into, everything below your secondo passaggio, but place the transition points in appropriate locations for your voice. I've been working on Lascia with a client, and I go to listen to different vocalists sing it on YouTube. It's always in different keys. It's moving around all over major second here, a major second there. It's up, it's down. It's fine. This is okay, even in that realm. Greg, also, voice lessons from the university teachers is a great way to find good teachers. This is true. And you are right. You are absolutely right, Greg. Thank you for bringing that up. It is possible to get lessons from the teachers at universities. You'll have to pay a fee, but they sometimes take private students. Mason, I am a baritone tenor. First break is, that's right. I can sing upwards of D5 in my mixed voice. Yes, that sounds right. Excellent. Capone, meant that you have to have a style. Yes. If one has opera voice, they can't sing rock better than best rock singers. So must find best music style for one's voice. But I love good voices no matter the style. Agreed. Absolutely. Absolutely agree. I I I really can't add much to that. Well done. Well said. Aldo. Why to go to a teacher when you have Jeff's channel? Everything is there. All you need is time and effort. Watch, listen, sing, and you learn. Thank you, Aldo. I do appreciate that. That is very, very kind. Thank you. Zoroko. I might consider looking into that as well, but I still prefer someone who has a really good background in singing than someone who's learning. Fair enough. That's totally fine. Susan Taylor, thank you for. I appreciate that, Susan. Aldo is. Oops, that's my scrolling. Here we go. I was talking to Capone. Mason, how to shake the habit of belting around an F4 for Bertrand Venner. Oh. Yeah, that's tricky. That's really, really tricky. Once you get into that habit, it can take some time to work through it. Start with descending patterns. Just start with descending patterns and just focus on being you. This is what happens when you talk too much. Really ease yourself down through that transition and then switch it around. The belting habit, that push of belting as you ascend, you're going to have to rework that habit and replace it with something else. So you can work your way around it by just doing descending patterns for a while. And then as you become more and more comfortable with it, and you can remember the physical experience of it, start to switch it around. Marilu Sad says hello, and I say hello back. I love that you teach like my teacher did when I was in high school and college. She was a star at the Met. Do you have warm-ups for contraltos? What is the true range for contralto? I was just looking at that. I was literally just looking at that in my book, one of my textbooks, yesterday. And I want to say secondo passaggio at E flat 5. Yeah, E flat 5 or D5 for the secondo passaggio, so the register transition point. I'd have to grab the textbook and open it back up to tell you all the specifics on the rest of the delineations of that, but I would suspect that would put the primo passaggio somewhere around B flat 4, give or take, B flat, B, A, depending. And then, then upwards of E flat 5, you've probably got another perfect fourth before you start getting into flageolet range. So dampening of the vocal fold and more of a ligament tone production around G flat 5. But again, don't quote me on that. I would want to verify all of that with my textbook. Tessin, hello, hey, welcome. Yeah, you can always once the event is over, you can always go back and watch everything that's been discussed. Heidi, Susan Taylor, I love the tenor videos. Excellent, right? Because Heidi is a lower vocalist as well. Greg, is it normal to lose lower falsetto notes once I've warmed up my head voice? For example, once I've sung a G or an A in head voice, I can't really do them in falsetto, even if it was easy before. Quite possibly, as the tissue's getting gorged with blood, they can sort of eliminate certain modes of singing from the way that you're using your voice. However, that is more common in the lower range of your voice than it is there. If you are finding that you're getting locked into your head voice, you may be harboring a little bit more engagement of some of those muscle groups. That's not allowing you to have that kind of flexibility. What you can try to do is come down to like an E natural or F above middle C, and start off in that and start it with a partially adducted vocal fold. So you're hearing a little bit of a falsetto tone production. There's a bit of air seeping around it, and then move it into a more fully adducted sound. But be conscious of your vocal fold engagement, and if you're starting to feel fatigue, then limit yourself to just a few minutes of that. JC's Radiant Ray is talking to Capone. JC's Radiant Ray has got a wink. Susan Taylor, thank you. You're welcome. You're very, very welcome, Susan. Capone is talking to Aldo. Aldo's talking to Capone. Capone had the sauna earlier. That's why you're able to stick around. Excellent, excellent. It's not. I don't think it's quite chainsaw weather yet, is it, for the ice up there? Derek Reeves. Hard-reaching head voice. Any tips? Start on descending patterns. This relates to what Mason was asking earlier about if you've become accustomed to pushing on the thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice, that's your chest voice, as you approach the secondo passaggio. That habit will almost certainly predispose you towards carrying a lot of muscle engagement on your chest voice, on the thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice. We can circumvent that habit by doing descending patterns that start above the zona de passaggio and work their way down. Now with Mason, I had a stepwise exercise because I'm familiar. I'm just somewhat familiar with the skill set that they're currently in possession of. Without knowing your skill set, the starting point for this, you. Notice how hollow sounding that is. You. What it's not is airy. There's no air in that, right? If you hear you, that's the ligament producing the pitch. That is a partially adducted vocal fold, and it is not going to help you make a smooth transition into your head voice, which is referred to as cricothyroid dominant singing on the channel. That is the muscle group that rotates these pieces of cartilage and elongate the vocal fold. And that is why ultimately, when you work towards making this transition smooth, you get a seamless registration event from low to high notes. But it starts like this. So very, very open and hollow. You. Then below the secondo passaggio, narrow. You. When you can really, really do that well, and keep in mind, you want to always keep the top note of that one octave arpeggio above your secondo passaggio. Then you can start ascending and going from there. That is all explained quite thoroughly in I think it's How to Sing High Notes Part 1, and there's 3 parts to that video if you happen to be a tenor. Then you can dive into that. And there's also, I think I did like How to Sing Over the Break or How to Sing in Head Voice. I think both of those are on the channel as well, and those will take you through that process. Tessin, I have been looking into the idea of inhalare la voce. Is that another way of describing appoggio? Okay, you've written apogee, which I'm not sure if that was an autocorrect or if you mean appoggio. I happen to do something like inhalare la voce sometimes, and it feels great. Yes, I have heard some people talk quite highly about that. I looked into it weeks and weeks and weeks ago, well, months ago, really, because it came up in a previous live event, and they asked me to speak to it. But I have to admit, it is not the mode of teaching that I employ, and so I would have to go and look. I would have to look up the description of how that particular technique is taught in order to expound upon the similarities between that and appoggio. If you would like me to do that, just mention it in the chat, I'm always happy to learn more and talk about it in these live events. And these are your live events. I know I said that at the very beginning, but these events are about discussing uh, the things that you guys want to discuss. Tessin, Apagio eludes me. I get tense and hold my breath. Do I go with inhalar instead? I don't know, honestly. Like I said, I'd have to go back and look at the similarities and differences. Now, about holding your breath, though, it can feel like that at first. When you initially when you initially start to employ Apagio, there is no requirement to exhale all your air prior to topping up your lungs, getting ready for the next phrase. And that may be what you are feeling. Maybe. Of course, I don't entirely know because I've never seen you, heard you sing. But that might be something that's part of it. And you may find that in time, it doesn't feel so much like holding your breath. It can feel like holding your breath if you're incorporating too much muscle engagement through your abdominal muscles and core muscles. Ideally, those muscles are dynamic in that they can respond to the needs of the voice, and that's one of the things that makes Apagio so amazing when it's really working properly. Yeah. Yeah, I may just sort of take it upon myself to look into that and perhaps bring it up next week, because I find I'm intrigued. It's been a while since I had a look at that. Zoroko, I'm starting to stop using excuse and doing warm up, and now taking responsibilities and making sure I'm organizing my time proper and doing well. Excellent. I commend you. Yeah, we have to warm up. We have to keep on our technical exercises. It's just part of what it is to be a vocalist. And if you want to bring your A game or be your best, then it's worth the time. Also, I'm going to send you singing. I was wondering if you can tell me about what Fosh might be better. Zoroko, get in touch with me via voicelessonssf.com. You can't send files to me, but there's a way that can all be worked out. So just I feel like we've been in touch before that way, so maybe just send me an email or get in touch with me via the website. Peyton Chan. Totally agree. Choral music is unreal. Agreed. If you don't mind, please check out the Stellenbosch University Choir. Thank you. I will. I appreciate the recommendation. I'm always loving to see or listen to new music. Thank you. Gene is saying that A major is his happy place when he changes the key. Excellent. That's really, really good. You may, I would extol you to notice your melody when you move it to A major. Like what's going on in the melody? Where is it going? Where is the third? Where's the fifth? Like how does that all put together? Because that may make future key areas. It may just inform your decisions moving forward. Zoroko, yes, indeed. Thank you for clarifying that. Hello from Russia. Hello, I'm here in England. Welcome. Mason, you're very welcome. Welcome, Mason. We can always change it. We can always change it. And look at it this way. If you've been belting for all this time, that's not going to go away. You'll still be able to do that, and you'll still be able to employ that, but you'll have an additional skill to add to your toolbox. So, yeah, absolutely. Keep us posted. Capone, some snowflakes today. 0 degrees Celsius, but freezing wind from Russia. And I've been moaning about how cold it is here in England. I have nothing to complain about. Mason, I found that my habit originates from heaviness in my chest. I used to be a bass. Wow. Yeah. Heaviness in the thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice can impose quite a few limitations on our ability to move through our range seamlessly. Yeah. Yes, in your chest voice. Yeah. Tessin. Yes. Tessin. Absolutely. I'd love to hear more. Find very little when I Google it, and my teacher doesn't use it. You're right about me using muscles too much. I do that in everything. You're very, very welcome, Tessin. You're very, very welcome. I'll have a little bit look. I remember. I just don't want to speak without having a look at it again. When I looked at it before, I had a certain preconceived notion about what it was because I had encountered it previously. But when I did some reading on it, I realized that it was a bit different. So I'll take a look at that and I'll speak to it briefly at the beginning of next week's session. And Maz is here. A good way I've found to feel the sensation of apogeo is to yawn and try to maintain that open throat sensation for a 5 count using support muscles. Yeah, talking to Tessin, that's a really, really good, that's a great, great tip. Thank you. Thank you for throwing that out there. Another way, actually, saying that, Maz, has got me thinking about other ways that I've had people trying to simulate the feeling of expansion. So Maz is talking about the space in the oral cavity. For a long time, I personally was using far too much muscle engagement in the core muscles and around the obliques, inner and outer obliques, and rectus abdominis and intercostal muscles. And one of the things you can do is you can take your thumbs and just sort of hook them in your trousers, or put some trousers on and then hook them in your trousers. Stand on the balls of your feet and kind of bounce and pretend like you're pulling up on your trousers. And what you'll feel is this kind of pervasive lifting sensation through the core of your body. And while it's not exactly what apogeo feels like, it's a really, really good approximation of what that musculature feels like when it's gently lifting and opening and supporting the air column for proper phonation. I just want to say thank you again. It's 7 o'clock and time for me to sign off. Awesome, awesome session again. I really, really appreciate all of the questions and comments and the interplay. It is always such a pleasure to get to talk with everybody on Saturday night. Have a fantastic week. I'll look up Inhalare la Voce, and we'll talk about that a little bit to get started next week. And until then, take really good care of your voices, enjoy singing, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.